Welcome back to the program. Well, the talk in Taiwan is becoming increasingly dark. Beijing is circling like a manly shark. And if that's not bad enough, some politicians are questioning Trump's commitment to defending them. Joining me now is GXO Strategies Director Cameron Milner and Menzies Research Centre Senior Fellow Nick Cater. Welcome to you both. Cameron, do you think the Taiwanese have reason to doubt US resolve in the event of a conflict?
Well, I think they do, and I think we should have grave fears for Taiwan and the democracy that is Taiwan, because they've got intemperate Trump, who is at the moment bumbling around the world, being an ally to some and an enemy to others any different day of the week. And then in Australia, in our own region, we've got weak Albo. Weak Albo is going to stand up for Taiwan. I don't think so. So Taiwan's got real problems in terms of traditional allies like Australia and America being led by people who've got very different agendas from what would otherwise be traditionally what we'd say, which is defend democracy, defend Taiwan and stand up to China.
Well, Trump most recently, being asked about Taiwan, said, yes, we defend our allies, but we also expect them to cater for their own defence, which raises the situation, Nick, in Taiwan, where you've got the opposition continually voting against increased defence spending. So that would seem to be encouraging China and angering Donald Trump, who they certainly need in their corner.
It certainly seems very hard to see that Taiwan could stand up to China with China's current state of militarisation and the size of Taiwan. As you say, they've not been investing as much in the military as they should do. They need some support if it comes to that. But I think it's hard to see China going to anything like a conventional war on this. They'll try to achieve it through other means. Then the question is, how strong is America willing to be in standing up to China, and how does it do it? What pressure does it make on China, apart from, saying cruel words in the United Nations?
Indeed. All right, so speaking of Trump, let's go to the US and talk about what's happening in Minnesota. Trump's pulling back some of his federal agents from that state after the second fatal shooting involving ICE officers this month. And he's sending his border czar, Tom Homan, to take direct control. Interesting, the White House is clearly trying to cool down the rhetoric after officials like Kristi Noem and Stephen Miller initially branded the dead protester a domestic terrorist. Here's White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt.
Has no doubt been selective outrage by the liberal biased media and picking and choosing victims and highlighting their stories. And as I've said, President Trump does not want any Americans to lose their lives in the streets of America and in American communities across the country. He believes what happened on Saturday is a tragedy.
So, Cameron, is this Donald Trump just trying to reset things? Because things have really spiralled out of control in Minnesota.
Awful tragedies within the space of a couple of weeks, and especially this latest one. I mean, he was, there defending free speech, using his First Amendment rights to carry legally an armament that didn't appear to be out, and yet he lost his life. And he was an ICU nurse. So no, I think this is very bad news, very bad optics for the White House, which is why Trump's moving. And you aren't seeing the same sort of strident language from the leader that you were seeing previously.
And Nick, there's a fair bit of pushback now within inside the Republican movement. Clearly, they believe that the tide of public opinion is turning against them. Despite the fact the majority of Americans wanted illegal immigrants dealt with, they don't like the way it's happening.
No, I mean, look, you've got to say that Trump has signalled very clearly to people that an illegal migration will not be tolerated. He's done that. He's made that point. But I think the scale of this, the number of officers they've been sending in and the kind of strong-arm tactics they've been using is maybe a bit of overkill. And I think that there's a sense that he's pulling back because of that. And the officers on the ground may have got a little bit, should we say, exuberant.
Exuberant, I like that. All right, investment in big solar and wind projects has slumped, down about 50% last year on 2024, and that's putting real heat on Labor's 2030 targets, which I know Cameron and Nick are both big fans of. The numbers suggest we're nowhere near the annual build rate needed, even with all the government schemes and incentives that are on the table. Cameron, what do we read into this slump? Is it policy uncertainty, or are the economics just not stacking up for renewable investors?
Oh, and we're seeing it on the ground. I mean, the Minns government's keeping coal-fired power generation open for longer.
Yep.
They're paying for it to stay open. I mean, gas is back on the table now. Nick, you and I think, are big nuclear fans as well, in terms of that being something which Australia should actually embrace. So, no, I mean, I think, energy mix with renewables only isn't going to be there. We're going to have a blend, and we're going to have coal and gas for a lot longer than people were expecting.
So, Nick, all of this tells me that the government's target 82% renewables by 2030...
4 years' time.
You're laughing. I haven't even finished the question and you're laughing. You know where I'm going. It's completely unrealistic, isn't it?
Look, it is. They needed to step up, to keep on schedule, they needed to step up the amount of renewable builds by 3 times the current rate. In fact, it's halved in the last year. Clearly, it's not going to happen. And the big problem is finance. No matter how many incentives they throw at it, the capacity investment scheme and all these other things, taxpayers' money basically underwriting these projects, it's still not financially viable. I think we can kiss goodbye to offshore wind for certain. It's very unlikely that many more wind projects are going to get up. All they're doing now is solar and batteries, and that's small-time stuff. It's just impossible. And in the meantime, we're wasting a lot of money.
All right, just quickly before we go to a break, I want to get your quick thoughts on 2 issues. A, should burning the national flag be banned? And B, what do you think of the Northern Territory mandating schools have students sing the national anthem? Cameron, on those 2 topics, just quickly.
Oh, both are great things. We should be proud of our nation, and we shouldn't have flag burners out there.
Nick?
Absolutely, but you don't ask me to recite the second verse of the national anthem, by the way. But yeah, I think they're flag banning, definitely.
All right, Cameron and Nick, really appreciate your time tonight. Thanks so much.